This plaque on a remnant of the old Victoria Bridge is a fitting tribute to the ethnic involvement in South Brisbane, while also catching something of the South Brisbane mood. It's emotional, heartfelt and over-the-top enthusiasm for everything. It tells of a young Greek boy who was accidentally killed while welcoming home troops from World War I, and it ends in a haze of patriotism, blood and bullshit. South Brisbane earned its reputation as the wrong side of the river through the sly grogging and prostitution that appears to have been accepted practice during most of the area's history. During the Second World War, while the segregated US Army occupied Brisbane, black soldiers were stationed in South Brisbane and were not allowed to cross the river. It's not as though there wasn't plenty to do on the south side. The Cremorne Theatre was a centre of vaudeville, where the traditional form was given a very local flavour by comedians such as George Wallace. Some of the skills practised there are kept alive by young Brisbane community artists like Derek the Fire Eater and the Drippy Taps, who of course tap dance. The Trocadero was a dance hall in the area that attracted huge crowds for much fun and frivolity, as these old photos show. But all that was to come to an end, and South Brisbane's fate was really sealed in the 1920s when all the separate townships of Brisbane were unified into a city. No longer could South Brisbane compete with North Brisbane. It was merely part of the whole, run from the city centre. The radicalism and solidarity of the working class was isolated in South Brisbane, and as capitalism tended more towards monopoly, the rugged independents of South Brisbane found they just could not compete. In short, South Brisbane was politically and economically isolated and then run down. It was at this point that the state government began to buy up land in the area. Then shortly after the conclusion of the Commonwealth Games in 1982, the state government announced Expo as a fait accompli. Richard Carew from the Concerned Residents Action Group explains what happened and what effect Expo is having on the local area.
They closed two major streets carrying traffic along the river bank, in Stanley Street and Grey Street, which ran parallel earlier this year, and rerouted that traffic down further into the West End community. And as a result of that, there's been a lot more traffic, a lot more noise, a lot more danger on the roads to children and to older people. Both, there are large numbers of both those groups that live in the local area.
Have we seen much change in the nature of the community as a result of, the Expo coming in?
Well, I don't think so yet, but it's a type of community which is forever changing anyway. There's a large turnover of people. Some people think that's bad. I think that's good. I think there has been increase in interest in commercial property, particularly outside the Expo site in recent times, and that's seen, for example, commercial buildings being built in residential areas in West End. I think that'll be a continuing trend, that there will be an increased interest from the commercial developers in land outside the Expo site.
That commercial interest must be affecting the land prices.
Well, definitely, yes, definitely.
It will bring an economic stimulus of $1,020 million before, during and after Expo. In the immediate area, it will certainly affect the retail end of West End. Their business will be boosted very well.
Do you think land prices will go up?
Yes, they certainly will. The land prices should go up quite substantially, and the only people I can see it affecting badly are those who perhaps rent a place and their rent may go up too much for them to afford it.
One of the questions that people have got really in the local community is what's going to happen to Musgrave Park during the Expo?
Well, Musgrave Park will stay as it is. We won't harm it at all. We'll be having things like bands playing there and perhaps a circus act or two, something like that, but nothing that'll affect the park itself.
There is those sorts of things, but what actually has happened in the last couple of years is the revitalisation of the culture and the coming together of the people again. And naturally what's going to happen is this sort of development's going to destroy any kind of cultural revitalisation that's going to come together.
We're from Suburb and stuff, and we're from communities and stuff, and when we come to Brisbane and stuff, this is where we end up and stuff, because we can't hack the wider society and stuff, and I just stand over to show people like Larkin. Larkin?
Here you are.
What's his name? Oh, what the fuck's going on? Hey.
How do you reckon Expo affect you when you're coming down from Sherbrooke?
You'll
be able to still come here?
Don't affect me really.
Yeah.
I'll be still here drinking.
Expo is shit, because they're putting us out in the outskirts and stuff. They getting us out and give us commission houses and stuff.
The Expo Authority under the Expo 88 Act has the power to plan for what will happen to the site after Expo. But as with everything else with the Expo Authority, they're keeping that very secret. It's the same story with the Expo 88 and the planning for Expo itself, that no consultation with the public, and that the consultation does take place is very token. So I think the main thing about that is that we have to put pressure on the Expo Authority and the state government, who are promoting the Expo, of course, to at least to start discussing the issue. People have to put forward their opinions, and people are doing that about the site after Expo. If the property developers have their way, it's a prime piece of inner city land down there, and I think that certainly the big developers would have their eyes on it for large high-rise development. That would be a disaster, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many town planners.
During 1985, the remnants of South Brisbane were totally obliterated, with the exception of a few historical icons. But we cannot view this event in isolation. At the same time, Trades Hall, at the top end of Edward Street in the city, was totally destroyed as well, when unions, who'd been there for years, were quickly shunted by the state government into new premises near the Expo site. This was seen by many as adding insult to the injury the state government had already handed out to unions over the Sequeb dispute. The destruction of the old Labor stronghold of South Brisbane merely completed the demoralisation of the Labor movement. One is left with the sense that the city has been razed without any concern for the humanity or the culture that once occupied it. And that atrocity breeds a dangerous nihilism that breeds further destruction. And standing on the side, I felt I was witnessing a chain reaction that started with the Manhattan Project or Enola Gay and is slowly spreading across the world, almost as though it's part of the practice of monopoly capitalism, until it breeds so much nihilism that total destruction becomes a reality. For this nihilism to work, people must be totally alienated. They cannot have roots or their own culture. They must feel alone in a large black universe, threatened by everything around them, threatened by a conflagration over which they have no control.